Hello, welcome to the Outside Fence Manikato Stakes Cox Plate preview. I'm on tour here up the east coast of Tasmania. Joined, I'm obviously your host Tristan Heffernan. Joined as always by Stewart Balls-Brown, who brings all the goodness to these preview shows each and every week. Balls, how excited are you looking for what is a massive weekend of sport in general?
Yeah, it is a big weekend. A couple of grand finals on, as well as obviously what we're here for, the Cox Plate and Manikato on Friday night. So, it's hard to get to sleep at the moment, to be honest, the excitement levels.
Yeah, so we're gonna dive into the Manikato Stakes first, and then we'll roll into the Cox Plate. But first of all, we've got to talk about this track because, as has been the case the last few weekends, it seems like we're dealing with a very wide estimate from our friends at the Bureau of Meteorology. How are you expecting the track to play, Balls, and what sort of rain are you expecting? And maybe that'll set the standard for how we're going to attack these two races.
Yeah, so there's obviously rain forecast for both days at this stage, with the emphasis being on forecast. So on Friday night, there's likely to be some rain through the meeting, maybe 6 to 8 mils, and then which, according to the track man, the track still probably should be in that good 4, soft 5 range. He doesn't think it'll do too much damage. Then after the races Friday, up until 10 a.m. Saturday, they expect around 10 to 20 mils of rain. So obviously that the more rain there is, I suppose, while they're not racing, will not be as bad for the track. But then, after 10 a.m. on race day, it should be fairly clear, with sort of strongish type winds that could sort of assist in drying the track out a bit. So, it might start, say, a soft 5, soft 6 on Saturday, but there's some chance it could improve during the day. So, that's obviously as we speak now. The Bureau haven't been too reliable lately, so that obviously could change.
Good point you make. It's not just the amount of rain we get, it's when we actually get it as well. If it obviously comes through the meeting, the track's going to deteriorate a lot more than if we're just getting it before a meeting, and it can dry out, especially if the strong winds you mentioned come through as well. So when we go through these runners, we'll sort of talk a bit about them on dry or wet ground, or what might advantage or disadvantage them. Let's get stuck into the Manikato Stakes. I'll bring up the market here. Obviously, trekking off his close-up fourth in the Everest is going to go around our favourite. Did anything catch your eye to start with there when the prices came out, Balls?
Not massively. Obviously, trekking's a class horse of the race, so I expected it to be favourite. Possibly could have been a bit shorter, even. Maybe some are risking it a little bit, sort of backing up off the Everest. Was a tiny bit surprised Pippi was second favourite. I thought maybe it might be a bit longer, and there seems to be a bit of groundswell for dirty work, so it wouldn't shock me if we got a dry track if it started second favourite. But not too many issues with the market there.
All right, let's roll over into the speed map. We've got Pippi holding the lead here from gate 1. Any of these that you sort of didn't know where to place them, Balls, or have got a big decision to make early on in the race?
Not really. They all sort of were pretty easy to place. Now, obviously, Bella Vella is drawn wide there, and she generally heads forward, and she obviously led when she won her Group 1 through the winter in Adelaide at 1,200 metres. So she's probably got a bit of a decision to make, whether she sort of pushes right on and Splintex takes a sit on it, or she might be cast 3 deep. Obviously, Pippi looks the leader from the inside gate. There might be a bit of pressure outside that makes her sort of boot up. Haydoc's the other one that can be right on speed. Did race outside the leader last start and has led and won in the past, but I'm not quite sure he's obviously got the speed of a horse like Pippi. And then the pressure from the outside from Bella Vella and Splintex might mean it takes a sit just behind them. With Diamond Effort looks to get a nice run, providing the fence is okay, sort of driving up from its low draw.
Alrighty, let's jump into the lead-up races. We're first going to look at the Scalacci, which was won by Dirty Work, who you can see there's last in screen in the orange. Who else have we got coming through this race, Balls, to check out?
Yep, so we've got the leader Splintex there. Outside it's Haydock. And just behind them with the red sleeves there is Diamond Effort. And also Order of Command, who's inside Diamond Effort there in the dark blue colours. It's in this race as well, but sort of very much an outsider.
All right, let's talk about the winner here, Dirty Work. Obviously in really good form this preparation, well in the market. What are your thoughts to his chances here?
Yeah, he's one of the chances in the race. Now, this race is 1,100 metres, which is a bit of a specialist distance for Dirty Work. So he goes up to the 1,200 for Manikato. The little query of Dirty Work is he had 3 previous runs at 1,200 and sort of failed to flatter on all 3 occasions. So that's definitely a concern. You can see here he sort of finishes off fairly strong. He's actually in the 5th fastest last 200 of the meeting, and this was off a fairly slow tempo. So he was sort of obviously got to show his very good turn of foot. The big question for Dirty Work on Friday will be the 1,200 metres. He's drawn low, so should get a nice soft run, which should assist him getting 1,200 metres. And also he wouldn't want too much rain to arrive either. Like he'd sort of prefer a dry track or sort of soft 5 at worst. So if we sort of get a significantly rain affected track, then that'll be sort of detrimental to his chances.
Okay. A few of these also came through the Moya, which we'll have a look at soon. So what about Splintex back there on the inside? Do you give him any chance in a race of this quality?
No, he's not on my radar as a winning chance. Obviously, he got a fairly easy lead on this occasion. You can make an argument that sort of that inside part of the track wasn't the absolute A ground on the day there at Caulfield, so maybe that's a little plus you can give him. But looking through his form, I just don't quite know if he's good enough, and I would have liked to see him do more given the run he had last start.
All right, beauty. Next race we're going to look at is the Everest, and this is where we see our favourite trekking come through. On the quick backup here, was what was obviously a really brutally run race with Eduardo flying along in front. Now trekking's back in the field in the blue with the white cap, runs on and just gets beaten for 4. So he comes here as favourite. He's a bit of a favourite of yours, Balls, trekking.
Yeah, he is. I seem to find him quite a bit. Actually had a bit of luck on him when he won the Goodwood. But I thought this was an excellent run in the Everest. He didn't really get cover in the race. Like you can see, he was sort of right off the back of the sort of third horse there, and so was sort of bringing up that backpack of horses. And so to run as well as he did was a great effort, I thought. Now, the big query, I suppose, with trekking is going to be, we all know this was a brutally run race, the Everest, and trekking himself, even though he's settled sort of off the pace, he's gone sort of fast early for him, but not. I don't think he's sort of overdone it. That it would have been a gutbuster for him. Now, the line I'm drawing with trekking for this race was last spring he won the Scalacci Stakes at Caulfield and ran one of his sort of punting form figure-wise. It was one of the best performances of his career. He then backed up 7 days later to run third in Everest, last year's Everest, in what was another really good performance. So he's on the 6-day backup here. So I'm taking that line with trekking and saying that he can handle the backup. He's obviously a great chance in the Manikato. He's another horse that if it became worse than, say, a soft 5, it'd become a bit of a query for him, as his best performances are on dry ground.
That's an interesting and very valuable point I think you make there about the quick backup. As soon as I thought of coming here a week off the Everest, it just brought me back to those fillies that failed in the 1,000 Guineas, and we thought, maybe that was the brutally run Flight Stakes which took its toll on them. So, giving me a little bit more confidence that point you make there about trekking. Now, he was the only one there in the Everest. Obviously, that looks the strongest form line, but we're going to go look at the Moya Stakes from a few weeks ago at Moonee Valley. Now, this was over 1,000 metres, but we've got a number of the chances who went round here as well, Balls.
Yeah, so we've got Pippi, who's the eventual winner of the race, who's in front. We've also got second Diamond Effort. I keep calling it Second Effort, who's a stablemate, in those red sleeves, who's about sort of 6th or 7th position there. Haydoc's just in front of him in the orange cap. Bella Vella's directly behind Pippi in the dark green colours. And Trekking is also in this race. He's in the all blue of Godolphin, sort of getting up the inside there.
And we've also got, is that Brooklyn Hustle out the back?
Brooklyn Hustle's the one out the back as well, and she gets home okay in this race. So.
Yeah, there's plenty to watch coming through this race. Now, when we reviewed this race on the show, we talked about how the horses that were inside were really well suited given the blockers that were out wide, Jungle Edge and Bella Nipotina. So you see there we got Pippi, Bella Vella trekking all coming through the inside, and Diamond Effort found a lot of trouble. Now, Pippi's one I want to talk about. Obviously won this race but goes to 1,200 metres. Do you think that's a bridge too far for Pippi?
Personally, I won't be with her on Friday night, but yeah, like she's obviously a good chance in the race. But yeah, 1,200 is the extreme of her distance range. And as we saw on that map there's possibility there is a bit of pressure there from horses like Splintex and Bella Vella that are drawn wide. So that could be the undoing of Pippi. So yeah, it's a horse in this race who I'm happy to go around. It's not saying she can't win, but yeah, at the price, I'm happy to go around her.
Okay, Bella Vella, you talked about her having map troubles. She had no map troubles in this race, the Moir. Is that enough to turn you off her chances here in the Manikato?
Yeah, massively. At 1,200 at this level, given the likely map that she has, I'd be staggered if she could win.
Okay, let's talk about Diamond Effort. We showed how close she went there in the Scalacci, and she was obviously really unlucky in this race here in the Moir. She shapes pretty well for this race to my eye.
Yeah, she does. I tend to agree. As we saw on the home turn there, she didn't have much luck in this race, getting stuck behind a couple of slow horses, and then she was sort of the best finisher, or the best finished horse out of all those horses that weren't sort of coming through the inside. She subsequently had that run where she was just beaten by Dirty Work at Caulfield, where she pretty much had every chance. You couldn't make too many excuses for her. Comes back to the valley here, which she likes. 1,200 metres is no issue. And if the inside's holding up, she can get a pretty nice run just off the leaders here. And providing a bit of luck comes on the turn, can be right in the finish. The big thing also at Diamond Effort is she loves wet ground. So yeah, any rain that falls, she'll be very happy with that. And I suppose the little issue for Diamond Effort would be a lot of her best runs have been early in a prep. So she's now fourth up into this race. So that's a little query, like sort of getting deeper into the prep, whether she can still perform at sort of such a high level. But obviously we'll find out Friday night, sort of whether any of those factors have come into play.
Okay, there's a couple more coming through the Moor I want to get your thoughts on. Brooklyn Hustle's a horse we've talked about a bit on the show, and she flashed home there at the end. She also came through the inside. Her racing pattern it makes her hard to back for mine.
Yeah, well, as you saw on the map, I've got her pretty much last here. So, I'd be very surprised at 1,200 if she can either make a wide run around them. I'd say there should be no hope if she had to do that. Her best chance would be riding for luck on the inside and trying to sort of duck and dive through. But even sort of at 1,200 metres, I'm not sure she's good enough. Okay,
and as we've got the map up here, one horse who does look to map well, who came through both those races and did win this race in 2017, is Hey Doc. He hasn't been far away, really. He's only beaten less than a length there in the Scalacci, and now he gets to 1,200 metres. He's obviously won at Group 1 level twice. Is Hey Doc maybe ready to return to his best at around $10 there on the market?
Yeah, he could be. I'd be pretty certain this would have been a bit of a target race of Tony McAvoy. So, and as you said, the horse has got a good record at Moonee Valley. The only little thing I'm worried about in this race with Haydock is that a lot of his best performances in these sprint races of recent times has been when he's been able to lead and sort of dominate the race. I don't see that happening on Friday night. So, that's sort of swayed me away from a horse like Haydock. If he was sort of the sole leader in the race or looked to be getting the front without a massive amount of pressure, then I'd say he'd be a massive chance in this race. But just given the sort of pressure around and his likely map, he's another one that I'd be going around.
Okay. We've pretty much gone through the whole field, but there's one horse that we all love, whether we back him or not, and that's Kementari. I actually did see someone tipping Kementari just for shits and giggles, given how times have been this year. He's on my never again list, Kementari. Can you make any case for him at all?
I can make a case for him, but yeah, he's pretty much on my not to be back list as well. But he ran a slashing race in this race 2 years ago, and what would have been, I suppose, a better field. Last start, he ran okay at Flemington, but he sort of loomed as the winner as he can do, and sort of didn't really go on it. I wasn't really happy with the way he finished off. He's got the blinkers going on here, sort of back on for the first time for a while, so he's got that. And Craig Williams jumps on, so there's a couple of positives for the horse. And if rain does come, then wet ground's no issue for him. So yeah, he's not a horse I could back as a winning chance in the race, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see him get into the placings or even sort of look the winner at some stage.
Yeah, I think I think everyone's pretty aware of where Kementari's at these days. I'm going to pull up our tips for the race. I'm going to preface it by saying that we do these tips without consulting each other. We don't go out of our way to tip them separately or differently, I should say. But this is somewhat embarrassing that we've come up with exactly the same tips for both. Now, when we talk dry balls, how dry does it need to be for trekking before you want to move across to diamond effort?
Yeah, I'd say if it's sort of soft 5 at worst, if it's sort of got to a 6 or worse, I'd sort of start leaning to diamond effort. But yeah, so yeah, trekking would be my top pick in the race, but obviously conditions are going to play a big factor in who I actually back in the race.
Okay, confidence levels on this race?
If the track was say good 3, good 4, then I'd be sort of very confident that trekking would win, and given a fair track as well. Given the uncertainty around the weather, it's hard to be too confident at this stage. Sort of 5 minutes out from the race, I suppose you're going to have a better idea on sort of what you're playing with.
Okay, obviously track patterns are going to be vital, and hopefully we've given you all enough of a rundown of each horse's chances to help you decide as we get more and more information leading up to the race. For what it's worth, I'm with trekking as well. I think he's clearly got the right form. His Moya Stakes run, even if he hadn't gone to the Everest, I think that was the right top up as well. So very hard to go past trekking. I think the price is quite reasonable for him, and as we pointed out, diamond effort just ticking along beautifully. And if she does get that preferred wet ground, then it does look like she's over the odds to me there. Diamond effort. So that's our look at the Manikato. We're going to dive in now to the big race on the weekend that I'm sure everyone is keen to tune in for, and that is the Cox Plate. I'm going to pull up the market here first of all, Balls. Obviously this market has been up for a long time. We've seen Russian Camelot get in very short and got back out. He's just starting to firm up a bit now with that forecast.
Yeah, so sort of wet conditions, I suppose, would sort of play into his hand a bit. And obviously, I suppose if it is wet, you'd expect by this time of the day, with sort of 2 meetings in 2 days, the fence would probably starting to go off. So making that wide run wouldn't be any disadvantage. I wouldn't be shocked if Russian Camelot starts favourite, regardless. To be honest, just given every start he has, he seems to be very heavily backed, and so obviously people who can move markets have that great opinion of him that they're pretty much happy to back him given any conditions.
All right, let's have a look at the map, because obviously one of the talking points from the barrier draw here for the Cox Plate was Russian Camelot drawing the outside. I'm going to pull up the map here. Obviously you've got Grand Slam rolling to the lead ahead of Magic Wand, Probabile box seating. We made the call here that Russian Camelot is going to go back. Let's discuss this and tell us why you think this is the case, Balls.
Yeah, so obviously last couple of starts, he sort of raced in a forward position. But yeah, I just tend to think, particularly if it's a bit wet and there's no issue with sort of coming wide on the track, I definitely think they'll be a bit conservative early on him, knowing that I suppose they've also got possibly a Melbourne Cup to come up with as well, so they might want to sort of look after him in that regard. I wouldn't be shocked if he did go forward, but yeah, just at this stage, I'm thinking they'll be sort of conservative, and from that outside gate, they probably don't have too many other options but to go right back. Yeah,
I think they probably will try and slot in if they can, and yeah, just keep heading back until they can get in there. Any other thoughts here on this map of horses who may have a bit of a task. We've got Arcadia Queen in the 3 wide line there behind Fierce Impact. There's some chance maybe that she gets caught a bit wide from that gate, given who's drawn inside her.
But I think she'll be okay. Like a lot of those go forward horses are drawn a bit low. Like there's not a massive amount of speed on paper to my eye. So the 3-year-old Grand Slam looks a leader to me, and he went fast in the Caulfield Guinea. So there's some chance he rolls along here with a lightweight, which could sort of ensure sort of at least a half decent tempo. But yeah, there's a lot of those horses that are drawn wide seem to be sort of naturally sort of get back type horses. So it might be purely that those drawn wide are sort of easing out of it early, and those drawn low are sort of pushing up to find a position. I just think there's sort of Arcadia Queen sort of drawn around the middle there. I just think there's enough horses sort of around that she should be able to find the back of something. Even I've got Fierce Impact there, 3 wide, no cover. I'd probably be a little bit surprised if he ends up 3 wide, no cover, just given that he sort of, particularly like you saw last start, he was like dragged right back to find cover. So I'd assume they'd probably want to do that again. So it will be interesting that first sort of, I suppose, the run out of the straight, sort of where these horses do end up and sort of what horses are sort of facing the breeze without cover, and sort of what horses have found the back of some of the better chances.
It can get messy if you don't have those horses out wide looking for a position, can't it? Because the horses drawn inside, if they can find their spots without doing too much work or having to fight off those horses out wide, it does have almost a ricochet effect going back through the field as horses try and slot in, and there's no need for those on speed to do any work. So it could be a sneakily tricky map here, I think, for some of these back in the field. But with that said, we're going to look at 6 of the lead-up races here for the Cox Plate. First of all, we're going to look at the Hill Stakes, which brings through some Sydney form with Colding and Fierce Impact coming down through there. I'll just pull that up now. First of all, are these horses on your radar, Balls, in terms of being a betting proposition?
No, they're not. Even though I suppose Avilius has come out of this race and run well in a Caulfield Cup without luck. I just don't really think it's sort of the right form race for a Cox Plate to me.
Okay, we've got Colding there in the 1-1. As you say, Fierce Impact was dragged back to near second last there. I think the fact that Avilius did run second in this race, which was on firm ground, that's usually a bit of a pot for those around Avilius under those circumstances. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd tend to agree with that. The other thing I would say, they've gone at a really slow tempo in this race. So a horse like Colding sort of lobbed in the A1 spot there with his main chances behind him, and he's sort of had free rein to sort of get out and get to the outside when he wanted, and he's actually put them away in the fastest last 600, 400 and 200 of the meeting this day. So I suppose he couldn't have done much more, but it's not a race that I'm looking at thinking we've seen the Cox Plate winner there.
Okay, there's plenty of, like you say, there's plenty of merit to the win of Colding, and he had one again leading into that race, and his best form obviously won the Golden Eagle last season, but when he came to Melbourne, his form was totally different in 2 Caulfield runs. Is that enough to pot him completely the Melbourne way of going?
It's probably not completely to pot him. Obviously, if this race was at Caulfield, you probably could happily, but there was a lot of talk from the stable that he didn't go the Melbourne way of going type thing. They didn't really specify Caulfield, it seemed to me, but Sydney horses do have a history of sort of being able to get round Moonee Valley. I think it's sort of a well-cambered track and things like that. So it's definitely something you've got to weigh up and sort of, I suppose, you can't trust him the Melbourne way of going because he's still yet to prove himself. So to me, I wouldn't put the pen through him on that regard. It's more the fact that I think he's facing a lot better race here and sort of the conditions might not be to suit, so to speak. 2,000
metres for both of these horses seems right at their mark. Is that a major negative for both?
I think for Colding, obviously got every possible chance in the world to run it last start, and I'd be surprised, obviously, if the same happens on Saturday. I'd assume they're going to go quicker than they did in the Hill Stakes. Plus, maybe the map won't be as kind to Colding. Yeah, Fierce Impact's a horse. 2,000 metres seems to be his upper limit for me. the little thing with Fierce Impact that I'm worried about is sort of 2,000 metres around Moonee Valley can be a bit of a tougher 2,000, I think. So they tend to get going a bit early down the side. You've got to sort of pull out and make your run a bit early. So I'd always prefer him at 2,000 metres at a bigger track like it was at Randwick there or at Flemington, where you can sort of get a bit of a track into the race a bit easier. So, yeah, for that reason, and probably, I suppose, you can throw in a bit of ability-wise as well, at 2,000 metres, I'm happy to go around a horse like Fierce Impact.
Okay, let's move on to a race which I'm sure we're going to be much stronger on from a strength of the form perspective, which we obviously get two of the major chances in the race here in Russian Camelot and Arcadia Queen coming through this Caulfield Stakes. So Russian Camelot was obviously deep into the red there in those navy and white Denny O'Brien colours. Arcadia Queen's back there in the pink and white. Obviously, the old boy Humidor comes through the Cox Plate as well. He's there in the green. Now, this was on good ground, so we talked on the show about possibly the good ground being the catalyst for the improvement in Arcadia Queen and maybe even a slight negative against Russian Camelot. Is it as simple as that as we look towards their chances in this race? How much rain we get really dictates on the chances of each horse?
It definitely plays a big role in it, I think. And also, I'd expect, even though that map, there sort of wasn't huge pressure in the race, it is a Cox Plate, it is a big field, so I would expect they're going to go faster than they did in this Caulfield Stakes. But as mentioned on our review show, this was the first time all prep that Arcadia Queen did have the bar plates off, and sort of, I suppose, got to her preferred distance around 2,000 metres, possibly. So, yeah, the condition of the track is going to be a huge talking point when it comes to these two horses.
All the way through, I've been sort of against this notion of Russian Camelot getting to the Cox Plate fourth up at 2,000 metres. I thought he's probably going to be maybe not quite as sharp as what he could be with the Melbourne Cup still firmly in the back of their mind. You've been a bit more forgiving on the prep and more likely to back him in futures markets than to be against him. Is he still one of the top picks for you? I'm starting to come around with this prospect of a wet track. I think he actually could be suited if it turns into a really tough 2,000 metres. If we do get dry ground, I'm pretty happy to be against him.
Yeah, he's still in sort of the top, say, two or three two or three chances in the race, I'd say, which is probably not saying much considering he's pretty much favourite. But, yeah, I wasn't too disappointed with his run last start, given if you weigh all things up, the sectionals were still pretty good for the day. Obviously, he was just beaten by a horse with a sharper turn of foot on dry ground. So, obviously, the rain coming would help Russian Camelot, and also if the Cox Plate was a bit of a test, that would definitely play into his hands as well.
Okay, quick one on the old boy Humidor. Is there any possibility for him winning this race, do you think?
I wouldn't say he's 1,000,000 to 1, but I'd be very surprised if he's won. Probably his best chance is sort of a wet track and almost a bit of a last man standing type event. But then you do say that, and you think if that was the case, it would play right in the hands of a horse like Russian Camelot. So yeah, it's hard to see him turning the tables on either of those first two home there.
Okay, fair call. Let's have a look at the Irish Champion Stakes. I'm sure you've seen this race a number of times, Balls. We're going to talk about he's a 3-year-old he's a 3-year-old in the Northern Hemisphere breeding season like Russian Camelot. This is Armory, son of Galileo, for Aidan O'Brien. He seems to profile similarly to a former winner in Adelaide. What can you tell us about this horse, Balls?
Yeah, so based on my, obviously I'm no international expert, but based on my investigation on this horse, he's in those dark blue Coolmore colours, running third there. Or he might run fourth in the end, does he?
Third. Yeah, he snuck in for third.
So based on that, it was obviously a good run here. Like Gayath ran second, who's one of the better horses in Europe. I think it's since been retired. I think that was Japan, the winner. It's met a high quality field there. It fits the profile of a sort of European Cox Plate winner. Obviously, you mentioned Adelaide there. So its recent runs over 2,000 metres have been excellent. Sorry, that was Magical.
Magical. Yep.
Not Japan. The thing with Armory, to me, it looks like it probably prefers firm ground. So any rain that comes could be a bit of a query. And if it was sort of a real test, I'd have a little bit of a query on as well, because a lot of sort of its other form is sort of over a mile, 1,400, things like that. But yeah, from the European horses, it's a clear top pick for me.
Clear top pick.
Yeah.
Excellent. On that point, we'll go and have a look at another international race here. This is the Tattersalls Gold Cup. Now we can point out a couple of runners here. We've got Armory, obviously, in those dark navy colours again, second from the right. We've also got Buckhurst, who looks unlikely to get a run in the race. He's in the Lloyd Williams navy and white colours there back on the inside. And then we've got another really interesting runner taking his place here, Sir Dragonet. Pretty sure it's there in the pink inside of Armory, and gives him a nice old shove away to get into the clear. Now, let's talk about Sir Dragonet. What do you know about this horse, and how do you think he profiles for this race?
Yeah, like a lot of his form looks like very good on paper, particularly early in his career. Now, this preparation, he's probably getting a bit of a reputation as a non-winner. He's sort of run placings all preparation. He's very much suited on wet ground, so if we do get sort of plenty of rain, that will play into his hands. He's sort of, I suppose, he'd be quite a strong horse for 2,000 metres around Moonee Valley. So yeah, he's obviously beaten Armory quite easily there, and obviously also Buckhurst. Buckhurst has actually beaten Sir Dragonet a couple of times previously as well. So, so I don't know how much we read into Buckhurst's performance in the Caulfield Cup last week to sort of try and draw a line with these horses. I tend to think maybe 2,400 wasn't ideal for Buckhurst looking back, so maybe don't sort of be too harsh on it. But yeah, Sir Dragonet, if we got a significantly rain-affected track, then obviously that would sort of bring him right into the race.
Okay, it's worth noting that this race, the Tats Gold Cup, was back in July, so Armory had two subsequent runs, and the Irish champion that we just showed was his most recent run. So obviously he beat him pretty easy there, Sir Dragonet, but there might be still a bit more scope in Armory, who was only having his 9th start here. But that said, that was only Sir Dragonet's 9th start as well. So interesting to see that he's much longer in the market than Armory. So yeah, that was quite an impressive run there by Sir Dragonet. Let's return back home now to something we have more idea on, arguably, Balls, and let's bring up the Epsom, because this is going to show us a 4-year-old mare by Savabeel called Probabeel, who wasn't really on the Cox Plate radar through her Sydney prep, but this was a very impressive win, and now, given a good barrier, she's been really popular in betting this week.
Yeah, she has, and I think with good reason. This was a pretty good win in the Everest. They've gone along at a pretty sharp tempo. She didn't really have cover for a lot of the race. She's in those sort of yellow and black colours looming up now towards the outside. So, yeah, it was a win full of merit. Now, she's drawn, obviously, a nice low gate on Saturday, gate 2. So I've napped her sort of pretty much in the box seat behind the leader. So, I think based on all those factors, she's a great chance on Saturday.
Is she your pick of the Sydney form?
Yeah, definitely is.
Let's talk about her 3-year-old form. She obviously got out to the Oaks trip last season and failed, but was given limited, if any, chance back in the field on heavy ground. She did run a slashing second in the lead up to that Oaks, the Vinery Stud Stakes. Now, that was on a soft 7 track, so wet weather probably wouldn't hold too many fears for this mare.
No, I'd probably prefer dry ground, but I wouldn't let sort of soft ground really put me off her if I liked her.
Okay, 2,000 metres. It's one thing to do it against the fillies. It's another to do it when the heat's on at Moonee Valley here in late October. Does that hold any fears for you?
Yeah, it's still definitely a bit of a query, but it's sort of a bit weird. The way she races, you'd think that she's always very strong through the line at these shorter distances. She can come off the bit a bit early and keeps finding. So it's like she looks like 2,000 meters would be fine. So I'm saying yes, it is okay, but yeah, it's definitely a query for her going into this race. I suppose the other little query for Probabeel could be, as was sort of mentioned before with the track, if the fence is going off by the Cox Plate, which will be sort of the second last race on the second day of racing at Moonee Valley, I think that would sort of dent her chances a bit, given that a massive advantage for her is being drawn low, being able to settle on speed and sort of get that really nice soft run behind the leaders. If it's more so they're making wide runs on the track and sort of down near the fence isn't really any advantage, I think that would hurt her chances as well.
Yeah, that would really diminish the edge that she may have there, given that inside draw. Speaking of, no, it's probably not fair to call this horse a query at 2,000 metres. I'm talking about the Guineas horse, the 3-year-old Grand Slam, who obviously caused a bit of controversy coming into this race. Now, obviously, this horse has never been past 1,600 metres, but there's a fair bit in the breeding to suggest that 2,000 metres won't be a problem here, Balls.
No, she's related to Jamaica, who obviously was an Oaks winner and won a Caulfield Cup and performed well sort of at 2,400 metres. So you'd think, on breeding, 2,000 wouldn't be an issue, but obviously Dawn Fraser's sister couldn't swim, so breeding can make a liar out of people.
Indeed, you've given him a sex change here too, Balls. Grand Slam, which you tend to do. He ran them along at a really good clip here in the Guineas. Now, we talked earlier about maybe not expecting such a strong tempo. He did have a fair bit of work to do early to hold this front, and there's a few of these runners really searching for it early in the Guineas.
Yeah, it was a run full of merit, really. As you mentioned, went along at a quick tempo and sort of held off all bar Ole Kirk and Asar, who had sort of nice runs around midfield. So, plenty of merit in that run. As we saw on the map for Saturday, he's likely to find the front and obviously got a nice light weight, and there doesn't look a massive amount of pressure, so he can possibly do his own thing out in front. The thing I suppose with this horse is it did start 50-1 in this Guineas, and the run prior was beaten at the midweeks at Flemington. So this is a fair leap of faith coming to a Cox Plate now. I've got no doubt this horse will have supporters, though, given that it is a 3-year-old. It will be on pace, and it's a Caulfield Guineas place getter as well. So it sort of ticks a few boxes of a 3-year-old that would run well in a Cox Plate. It's not a horse that I'll be on Saturday.
Let's talk about, obviously, we've heard a lot about Seamus Award. We've heard a lot about So You Think. They're the last 2 3-year-olds to have come through and won in this fashion. This horse his lead up into the Guineas was very different to both those horses. So You Think won the Gloaming, was unplaced in the Caulfield Guineas, but given it was a really inside track that day, his run I think he finished 5th was really impressive as well. So he wasn't known as a leader going into the Cox Plate, but obviously Bossy took him to the front, and the rest is history. In terms of Seamus Award, it seems like this horse, Grand Slam, is being compared a bit to Seamus Award in that they both... obviously Seamus Award didn't make the field. He was an emergency. He was a maiden at the time he won the Cox Plate. So people are drawing some conclusions, maybe drawing a line through Grand Slam that he hasn't really had anything... any performances on the track before this Caulfield Guineas that would suggest anything like a Cox Plate. But Seamus Award, even though he was a maiden, he did have some very good performances leading into the Cox Plate, didn't he?
Yeah, he definitely did. He definitely sort of profiled as a more of a likely Cox Plate winner than Grand Slam did, I think, going into the race. And obviously it turned out that he did win the race in the end. But yeah, I suppose every year they're going to make comparisons between a horse like Seamus Award and any 3-year-old that goes into the Cox Plate with sort of a resume that sort of isn't full of Guineas wins and things like that. So I think any comparisons stop at they're both 3-year-olds and they're both obviously got running in a Cox Plate.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to pull up the market. There's a couple of horses we haven't mentioned. just give us a quick yes or no on the ones we have mentioned. And when we get to a couple of these we haven't talked about yet, we'll maybe spend a little bit of time on them. Colding, we can almost... Colding's a no? Sorry, Colding...
Yep, a no from me.
No. Yeah, Colding's a no from me. Humidor?
No.
No from me. Fierce Impact?
No.
No from me. Master of Wine, you're surprised he even turned up here, Balls? I spoke about how sick I am of him on the review show. You're getting that way as well?
Yeah, he's definitely a no for me. Not hugely surprised he's here. You may as well have a go while you're up and running, I suppose. But yeah, it'd be a massive form turnaround for him to win.
Mugatu, did you think we'd see him in the Cox Plate?
I didn't really. I thought Caulfield Cup would probably be a better option for Mugatu, but here he is, and yeah, I don't give him much chance.
Okay, same to me there. Aspetar, this is another international horse that we haven't talked about yet. Could you make any sense of his form?
I tried my best, but yeah, looking at his form when you compare it, I suppose, to the other European horses, particularly Armory and Sir Dragonet, I thought he was sort of well below them, and yeah, he's not one I could find in this race.
Okay, Magic Wand. Well, actually, Sir Dragonet, yes or no?
If we got a lot of rain, yes. Otherwise, no.
Okay, I'm a bit open to Sir Dragonet's chances. I'm just taken by that Tattersalls Gold Cup run. Without knowing too much more about the horse, I'm not really keen to back, but I would definitely be throwing him in. Magic Wand is a horse that we know quite well from her exploits in Melbourne last year. She obviously ran... she was near the lead, ran fourth in this race last year. She then went to the Melbourne Cup, disappointed. Well, she only got beat 3.5 lengths. Then she backed up from the Melbourne Cup to win the McKinnon, which was unheard of, and just absolutely sensational to see a trainer put a horse through such a preparation and just keep racing. And following that, she went to the Hong Kong Cup and only got beat a lip over there. So her best form at 2,000 metres is arguably better than any horse in this race. But her form over there this season has been well below par, Balls.
Yeah, it's hard to get those last two runs out of your head where she looked very disappointing. So particularly with a mare, whether she sort of had enough of racing now. But yeah, you could build some sort of case for her based on sort of, I suppose, some of the form in the past 12 months. But yeah, if you look at the last two runs, she looks very much a long shot.
Okay, we've been through Arcadia Queen. Natoya, I can probably guess.
No.
No, she looks outclassed to me too. Natoya, Russian Camelot, we've been through. Armory, Probabile, and Grand Slam we've been through. I'm going to jump to the tips now, Balls. I've skipped over a lot of those last few because I think we're about to discuss them a bit more in depth now. I'm going to pull it up here now. You've managed to find us the first four in the market. Congratulations to you. Maybe you could just... well, I guess you can only find what you can find in the race. Maybe talk through these four chances and give us the situations in which you'd be keen to back them. I assume you don't want to be backing them all at once.
No, there'd be no chance I'll back all four of these horses. So Arcadia Queen, I'd be interested in if the track was no worse than a 5. I'd definitely, if Russian Camelot, I'd probably only be interested if it was a 5 or worse. And obviously, sort of running on out wide was no issue. Armory, I'd probably only want up to a 5 as well. And then Probabile, I'd want to see sort of how the inside's playing. Track condition, purely the track condition would worry too much with her, but a lot of it would be how the track's playing. If there's any on-pace bias or there's no disadvantage to being on the fence, then she looks pretty easy to back to me.
Right, so okay, you can see yourself making a book around maybe 2 or 3 of these 4 runners?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say most likely I'll be backing Armory Probabile, and then sort of, I suppose, Russian Camelot, Arcadia Queen come in based on sort of how the track is, sort of how it's playing and that sort of stuff.
Okay, and how's your confidence in terms of finding a winner and betting on this race compared to other races on the card?
No, pretty low. It's not a race sort of that I've been able to narrow down quickly. I suppose you throw in the conditions as well and the uncertainty around that. Sort of at this stage of the week, it makes it sort of tough to really be confident about one. But yeah, given the once we get to the day and we find out the conditions and things like that, you can obviously start putting the pins through a few, and I could become a bit more confident. But yeah, at this stage, it looks a great race, as it always is, the Cox Plate, but it's not a race that I'm sort of been able to really peg down and declare a horse.
Yeah, I'm a bit like you there, Balls. My only tip for the race is I've got Magic Wand in as my best roughie. I just think that if focusing a lot on her recent performances, I just can't imagine that they would bring her out for this race if she was as gone as what her form tends to read. And on her form last year, she would be right in this race. So we've seen a horse like Prince of Arran, who seems to grow a leg out here in Australia. I think at the price I'll be... And given she's going to get a really good run on speed by the looks of things too, I think at really long odds, Magic Wand would be worth a little sneaky from my perspective. Outside of that, I think I sort of agree with you that the main chances have been well found in the market. As you say, the pattern's going to play a really strong. It's going to really play a really strong hand in what horse gets away with this race in what looks a reasonably even Cox Plate. And those who know me would probably be a bit surprised I'm not tipping Grand Slam, because I tend to back every 3-year-old that goes around. But I think I'd want to see the fence holding up to have something on Grand Slam at the $20+ on offer. So all I can provide is Magic Wand at really big odds. So thank you, Balls. I think that's it for our preview show. Thanks to everyone who supported us last week. Keep the comments coming and the likes. We had some really good numbers viewer wise. So thanks very much for that. And as long as that keeps going, we'll keep doing these shows. I hope you enjoyed watching. Balls, thanks very much as always to you, and good luck on the punt this weekend.
Thanks, Hef. Same to you.